There's a lot of loyalty that you find in Milwaukee that you don't find in other places. You know, people are very loyal to this city, making sure that your cooks know how to cook things with proper techniques and, you know, not with gadgets or gizmos, but, the tried and true methods where there's actually fire. So service is more important than food a lot of the time, because you can have great food, amazing food, but if you have not so great service, you're gonna think twice about that. Yeah. I do love Milwaukee. I love what it's become my home. A great place, to have raised a family and also to have started a business and to be a part of something. We have so many great restaurants, like I said, Three Brothers, Birch, Diplomat. There's a great list of them that all these restaurants are independents, and you just want to see them continue to grow. In the restaurant, you want everybody to be cooking just as great as the next person, so that all the guests from any station where their food comes from is going to be great. I'm not a trendsetter, trendy person. I like to just keep teaching these young kids how to cook. That's really important.
Basics. You're the basics, fundamentals.
Fundamentals, traditional. It takes time and a lot of energy to become a good chef, but to become a great chef, it takes even more time and more energy. And knowledge is power, and that's something that is fading a little bit. Is the time that's being put in by some of these younger generations to learn more about it.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Milwaukee Flavor podcast presented by Visit Milwaukee. It's your boy, it's your host, Jamar Jones. I'm the owner of Forever Media, and we're going to get into some awesome conversation. This show is all about the culinary world, experiences, but really shining a light on Milwaukee and knowing that, hey, we got some good food, we got some great talent, and we got some amazing stories to share with you. So we got an amazing guest, but first I want to introduce you to my man Ian right here. Let everybody know what's going on, man.
Yeah, I'm Ian Thompson with Visit Milwaukee. I am the Senior Communications Manager over at Visit Milwaukee. I would also kind of declare myself to be a little bit of a foodie, not an expert, but enjoy eating just like hopefully everybody else. And I love going to all the restaurants that are here in Milwaukee.
Yeah, for sure, man. And we got an awesome guest. Do you want to introduce him?
So we have our amazing guest here, Adam Siegel from Lupi Iris.
Hey there.
He's here joining us to talk culinary, talk about the cookbook that we at Visit Milwaukee put out, and some of the cool things that he's doing here in the city.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for being here, man.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very happy to be here. So.
And you promised to keep it PG for us today.
I promise to keep it PG to the best of my ability.
Yes, he did promise.
Keep it PG. Unless it's the name of a dish. I was told that's okay.
Yep, so. That is 100% okay. To kick things off, tell me a little bit more about, your culinary history, what brought you to Milwaukee, or are you a native Milwaukeean?
I am not a native Milwaukeean. I've been here since 2000. I'm originally from Chicago. I worked in Chicago, worked in Florida. In Chicago is where I worked at Spiaggia way back in the early 90s and moved out to California, worked in San Francisco for a while, moved to Italy, worked out there for a year in a 2-star Michelin restaurant, San Domenico of Imola. And then I came back to the States and moved to D.C. In 99 and worked for Todd English to open up Olives. And that's where I met my wife, and I had already known the Bartolottas, and they brought me out to Milwaukee to take over Lake Park Bistro. And so I had done that for 21 years, and then I decided to do my own thing with Lupi Iris.
That's awesome. What made you go from Chicago to here?
I hadn't lived in Chicago since the early 90s.
Yeah.
And I wanted to travel around. And, when you're a chef, getting experience in different parts of the country, different parts of the world is really important because it just builds your repertoire up. You're in different environments. Food's different in different environments. People are different, so you learn different cultures, different traditions. And I wanted that. Yeah. And, I was young and, didn't really need to be saving for anything. I just wanted to keep learning and moving forward and getting as much experience as I possibly could.
So Milwaukee and Chicago are so often, compared and everything else.
Couldn't be more different from one another.
Exactly. Yeah. So what are kind of some of those differences that you see in between the two cities, and obviously what makes Milwaukee better?
Well, shit, I love that. You just got that right in there. Well, I love being in Milwaukee. I've been here since, like I said, since 2000, and they're so different. Chicago's way bigger. Milwaukee is much more of a smaller town mentality, but it's still it's growing in such a way that it's becoming a little bit more cosmopolitan. I mean, don't get me wrong, Chicago is much more cosmopolitan just because of the size of it and it being such an international hub. But Milwaukee is rooted with such culture and tradition that it's so unique to itself. And there's a lot of loyalty that you find in Milwaukee that you don't find in other places. People are very loyal to this city, and that's a very cool thing. It's very rooted in its history, with all the different ethnicities that are here, and it's just a great thing to be a part of.
Yeah, what is something that you've seen? So do you continue to travel? No?
Here and there, it's a little bit hard, after you open up a really big restaurant.
Yeah. I can only imagine.
Hopefully, I start traveling again soon. But
I was gonna say, could you try to define like a Milwaukee style of food? So because I want people to be able to, just like how they stamp, like you say you were in Italy,
right.
They try to take the foods there and apply that there. How do we apply Milwaukee other places?
We're a lot more than cheese, curds, and beer.
Yes.
We are a lot more than that.
Even though they're good.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with some fresh fried cheese curds. Don't get me wrong there, but there's a neighborhood feel here that you get that you don't have in a lot of other cities, and it's purposely smaller. There's not those big chain restaurants or just even that many of those big restaurant groups that have multiple restaurants.
Yeah.
There's a couple here, but there's so many more independent restaurants that give it a closer to home feel for the guests. That's really important. I'll be honest with you, opening up Lupi and Iris, it couldn't be more different than that. I wanted to have something that gave Milwaukee something that was very cosmopolitan, very big, very modern, something, that we don't have very much of.
Yes.
Because, when we do have all the tourism that we're getting, we need more of that as well. But, for the neighborhood spots, I mean, there's nothing like it compared to here. And it's great. You go to certain restaurants that are just staples here. Just Three Brothers is one of them, to name the best one. And it's been going for well over 50 years. And, you don't find that in many other cities.
Yeah.
So Jamar and I have had the pleasure of stopping into your restaurant on separate occasions. Amazing food as well.
Thank
For
you.
anybody that hasn't been to the restaurant as of yet, can you give us the description? What kind of food is it? What do you get to eat there? That kind of thing.
Sure. Well, we say it's Mediterranean, but it's French, Italian, Spanish inspired. And some of it's traditional, some of it breaks tradition a little bit because you have to Americanize, things, or you have, just a difference in ingredients, or it's just a flavor combination that we might want to try. But it's very, coastal Italian and French, like I said, are the prominent flavors that you'll find there. But we focus on, especially with my cooking style, focus on simplicity, getting really great ingredients and treating them in a respectful way, and then just letting them shine through on the plate, making sure that your cooks know how to cook things with proper techniques and, not with gadgets or gizmos, but, the tried and true methods where there's actually fire or something, and making sure that things get cooked that way, teaching them how to, know with time and temperature what the results are going to be with whatever it is, if it's a vegetable, if it's a fish, or if it's a piece of meat. And so we put these flavors together and the simplicity, and it really works. And I think when you come into the restaurant, we have this wood burning oven and wood burning grill. You get this really nice light smoke, smell going in the air, and it's a great aroma. And then that imparts into some of the dishes that we do. in the restaurant because they're cooked in the wood burning oven or grill, and it really gives a nice subtle flavor, and that separates it from a lot of other places.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think also in the culinary world, there's also the experience and customer service part of it too. But
Absolutely.
particularly at Lupi and Iris, the customer service was just like, I feel like it was a notch above like anything else that I have experienced in the city. I was like, oh my God, I feel like a king.
Yeah. So
feel good.
for me and the management team, Scott Williams is the general manager, and he and I have worked together for 24 years.
Yeah.
Because he was the general manager at Lake Park Bistro before, and we were a team for 21 years there, and now we're together at Lupi and Iris. You know, we know what we want to give for as far as service, and service to us, especially like, you know, my service is more important than food a lot of the time, because you can have great food, amazing food, but if you have not so great service, you're gonna think twice about that.
Yes.
You can go someplace and have the best service in the world, and you can have just pretty good food, but you're going back there. Because it completes the experience. And, you know, that to me is important. So my goal is to make sure that you have amazing food and amazing service. And, you know, that's super, you know, important. It comes with a lot of training.
I bet. Is it like a boot camp training? I mean, I'm like, man.
No, it's making sure.
It was great. The moment I walked in the door, it was like, from the host to the waitress, I mean, and then people just walking by were checking in on us.
It's making sure.
It's like, it's incredible.
I love hearing that.
No, you really don't get that a lot of places.
Well, you know, it's making sure that you're also hiring the right people.
Yeah.
And, you know, so there's an interview process, and you're making sure that you're not just hiring a server or the position, you're hiring the person.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that they're going to have the right personality, the right fit for the place. And then it's making sure that they're getting trained by the right person who's going to understand how this one might work a little bit differently. So we're going to make sure that they learn all this, and, you know, educating them, giving them the right information about all the products that they use, whether it's wine, food, you know, or some other beverage, or, you know, just even how to properly serve somebody.
Yeah.
All that matters, and it's constantly talked about on a daily basis.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Yes, you definitely
appreciate that.
So, Top Chef, right?
Yeah.
They were here. They descended upon the city. They filmed in your restaurant as well, too.
It was an amazing thing for our city. It really was. It was, you know, for our state, it was an amazing thing. And I was fortunate enough to be on the very first episode, and also to, you know, to be a guest judge and to have them film the whole episode just about in Lupi and Iris, and having all 15 contestants in the kitchen at the same time. It was pretty wild to watch that, you know. It was pretty cool. It was a great experience.
Yeah, and we got to see your staff involved as well too. That was
Some
great.
of my staff helped with you know, serving and everything, and just, you know, the being a part of that and having it for our city and the excitement that it built up for us, you know, to put us on a national level is something that, you know, Milwaukee deserves and should get more of. And hopefully that's opening up the door for more opportunities.
Next stop is Ramsey. Is he gonna get?
We'll see. You know, we've had Anthony Bourdain here in the past.
Yeah.
You know,
Cool.
You know, I filmed with him back in 2010, I want to say, with Joe Bartolotta.
Okay.
And that was an amazing thing. And, you know, just getting more of this attention. And, you know, it's not necessarily just even the TV shows, but maybe it's you know, national publications and just the awareness of everything. And, you know, having some, you know, James Beard nominations and winners in our city is a huge thing as well. Yeah,
that spotlight is just so important because especially I do a lot of traveling, and I always talk to people like, hey, you know, they always ask me like, hey, where are you from? Like, hey, I'm from Milwaukee. And like, man, I haven't been there in, you know, 15 years or something. Like, dude, you should go back because it's different than
a lot different.
15 years ago. So there's a lot of character and a lot of development. What keeps you here besides an amazing restaurant?
Well, Elise keeps me here.
There you go. Shackled, or are you free?
I do love Milwaukee. I love what it's become my home. This is the longest I've lived anywhere. And I think that I've found it, and I think a lot of people have found it a great place, to have raised a family and also to have started a business and to be a part of something. And coming here in 2000 and being a part of what has helped develop our city culinarily has been a great thing. And I've been happy to be a part of that. And a lot of these chefs that are up and coming and building up on their careers, a lot of them have worked in the kitchens that I was running, and it's a great thing to see and to be a part of. And I'm just really proud of that. And why not Milwaukee?
Yeah. So when you bring people to Milwaukee for the first time, what are the places that you generally kind of take them to? Somebody asked you, like, what should I know about Milwaukee? What would those kind of things be?
Well, you always have to tell them to get down to the lakefront, because that's such an amazing, beautiful thing compared to other cities that we have, how it's been preserved with the parks and the beaches and everything. But also the art museum, to go to the, to check that out is great. As far as restaurants, I always tell them, you have to go to Three Brothers. You have to go to places like Birch, and there's just like some staples that you have to hit. You got to go to Kopp's or Leon's for some frozen custard or a burger. Got to go to Solly's and get some, the ultimate butter burger and a milkshake and onion rings. And so those are the places that I always tell them to go to. Those are my staples. Those are what I love to do. We have so many great restaurants. Like I said, Three Brothers, Birch, Diplomat. There's a great list of them that all these restaurants are independents, and you just want to see them continue to grow.
So you talked about Birch. Kyle Nall and yourself have a cooking series. You have a cooking series. Kyle Nall.
He's going to be a guest at one of the. So we're doing a chef pairing, as we like to call it. We just did one recently with Gregory Leone of Amalinda. That was amazing. Another awesome restaurant. Soon we'll have Zach Baker from Calucenza, Dane Baldwin from Diplomat, and then Kyle Nall from Birch. And I'm excited for this series. It'll be a great thing, and we're going to continue it. After this series, we're gonna come up with a second series.
That's awesome.
But to work in the kitchens with them and to bring them into Lupi Iris and they do a few dishes, I do a few dishes is a neat thing. I never worked with Greg in a kitchen before, and it was fun to see how he worked and to see his food in the kitchen, and for a guest to experience two different chefs at the same time like that is also a great thing. And if somebody had never been to Lupi Iris or they've never been to Amalinda, it gave them a taste of that, in this one night. It'll be really fun to work with Zach and Dane before, because I worked with them in the past, and so it'll be neat to be back in the kitchen with them.
That's cool, man. With being in the kitchen, what is your favorite dish to make?
Ooh, I'm always asked that on a daily basis.
I bet. Because I want to try it. Whatever you're going to say, I'm trying it.
I don't have a favorite dish.
Nah! Come on!
You want to know why? Because it depends on what you're in the mood for that day and
That's
that
true.
time.
That's true.
So one day it might be steak, one day it might be a piece of fish, one day it might be a piece of cheese.
Yeah.
It depends on what it is. There are, if you look at me, it doesn't look like I don't like food. So, I love food.
I don't trust the people that don't love food.
I love to eat. So, there isn't much, out there. It's, but I love, the style of food that I do is how I like to eat.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit simple, protein and vegetable focused. There's a few pastas on the menu. Some are fresh and some are dry, but which are a little bit, some are more traditional than others. But, for last night, I had a veal chop, and it was, amazing. And it has this caramelized anchovy and garlic on it, a little bit of charred lemon, some roasted cauliflower. That to me is how I love to eat, and that's amazing to me. And to just get it where it's just great ingredients done well. So I do recommend the veal chop if you come
Yeah.
in.
Did you bring any? I mean, you're supposed to just come places with food already prepared.
I gotta lure you back.
We will be back. Yes.
I gotta lure you back downtown to go get some
For sure.
some veal and everything.
For sure. That's cool, man. That's cool. I'll definitely try that out. And I do get the feeling thing, because there's just times where you're in certain moods for certain things, but I feel like you got to have a favorite though.
Well, okay, favorite.
Can we get that out of you today?
Okay, some of my favorite things to eat in the world. Okay. I mean, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Okay.
Is one of my favorite things.
Really?
Really. I mean,
you said simple.
You want to know why?
Simple.
Because for me, it triggers a memory. So to me, peanut butter and jellies are sitting there with my kids when they were little and having something to eat, and then also it brings you back to your childhood.
Yeah,
that was my favorite sandwich as a kid. Chunky peanut butter, please. And some good old fashioned grape or grape jelly, sometimes strawberry jam, but the classic way of.
Mm-hmm.
But also, something that I love and I miss dearly was my grandmother's chicken soup that she used to make. And, memories of being with her in the kitchen, I could smell it just thinking about it and everything.
Yeah.
And those are the things that I love to eat that are, hard to have on a daily basis. I make them here and there. Something that we give away to a lot of customers in our restaurant, and we also have them on the dessert menu, are these little cookies that were my grandmother's almond walnut cookies that I loved it. Yeah, Ian's had them a couple times that I love to give to people because that's a taste memory that those are my favorite foods. Those are that. It's not just about the actual food itself. Yeah,
the memories.
But it's the memories that are attached to them.
Yeah.
So will we see the chicken soup on the menu?
Probably in the wintertime you see it. I've done it in the past here and there. And it's the classic Jewish style chicken soup. She would always do matzo ball soup. And one year I actually did it for a truffle dinner where I put white truffles in her matzo ball soup. I hope she wasn't angry with me up there, but
it sounds good to me though.
I'm sure she's proud of you. Yeah.
But we make it at home all the time. My wife makes it, and my wife makes an amazing chicken soup as well. And sometimes it's very similar to how my grandmother's was.
So speaking of recipes, you have a recipe in our Visit Milwaukee cookbook. Yes, which you were very gracious to contribute to us.
Thank you for having me a part of it.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about it?
So it was the rice pudding risole, one of my absolute favorite desserts. It's one of those things that is super simple to make. And, it's also another childhood memory. My grandmother made rice pudding when I was younger. But I always like it because it's just something that especially in the wintertime, it just kind of warms you inside when you have it. I do like it. You can eat it warm or cold, but I love it when it's nice and lightly warm. A little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of sugar, in there. Lots of good milk, and if you want to do it with a twist, you can make it with chocolate milk even. Oh. And I always use arborio rice, which is the rice that you use to make risotto with, just because it makes it even creamier. Mm-hmm. You could top it with dried fruits or nuts. In the cookbook, I did it with a cherry compote that we made. We're right here in Door County, some of the best cherries in the world.
Yes.
That you can make it with. So that was the recipe that I did, and it's one of those that are near and dear to me.
Out of all the recipes, that was the one that you chose?
Yeah, it was probably.
I know you have a story about the milk.
Well, the milk, yeah.
There's always the milk story.
Yeah. So I would make rice pudding at home a lot because my wife used to order milk from a dairy, and they would deliver the nice glass bottles at your side of your door every week. And, they leave them in the cooler. And, as the kids got older, they weren't drinking as much milk. And then our son left, and all of a sudden, she wouldn't change the order or cancel it. And we had all this milk all the time in our fridge, and it was really good milk. I wasn't a huge milk drinker, and I'm like, what do you want? Can I cancel She's like, no, I'm not ready to give that up yet. It was like, it's like, I think she was admitting that we don't have little kids anymore. We're getting older. Yeah. And so I started making rice pudding, and I was giving it away. Like, I was making like a gallon of rice pudding a week or so, just to keep the milk from going bad. between that and eating like a quart or two a week of rice pudding.
Yeah.
You know, it was
You never got sick of it?
No. You know,
After all that
you come home after a long day.
Yeah.
Heat up a little bowl in the microwave and, you know, sit in front of the couch, get a nice belly full of rice pudding, fall asleep, and then, you know.
That's cool. That's cool. I got to ask this question. This is more of a selfish question for me. So out of all the amazing guests that have come by your restaurant, who has been the biggest guest celebrity that you've had stop by the restaurant?
Biggest guest celebrity that we've had come through the restaurant? Well, we've had quite a few. Adam Sandler has been through. Tim Allen have been through. Elvis Costello, who is actually somebody that I've known for a long time, and anytime he's in town, he gets in touch with me, and so that was a fun night. That was a year ago. He played at Summerfest.
Yeah.
And so he let me know, and then he came back to the restaurant with me. We actually drove back in his tour bus back to the restaurant after Summerfest.
Oh, nice.
And so we went in. We hung out with Elvis and his tour manager, Toast, and my wife and some friends, and just had a great time hanging out. And I made him some food, and you know, so those are some of the bigger names. But you know, one thing that I always make sure, you know, we get, you know, athletes all the time, is to respect them. You know,
don't grow overproud of them.
I'm not one of those that's gonna go and you know, get the autograph and shake their hand and everything. Let them be. You know, let them come in, feel like they can come back here because they're not being hounded or anything like that. Yeah. And then, you know, just say hi. Treat them like they just want to be treated, you know, with respect. And,
respect.
You know, they don't want to be hounded or anything like that most of the time. So
they are human beings as well.
They are human beings. Well, you know, but then again, they do throw themselves out in the spotlight.
They
so
do.
They do have to deal with it. I'm just not one of those that's going to be like, you know.
You got to stop your employees, though? You have to, like, tell them, like...
Yeah, some of them, yeah.
Like, hey...
Some of them, it's like...
Cool,
you know? You heard me, right?
We see Giannis, you know, you can see him across the entire restaurant, but...
Right. But
no, keep it cool.
They, you know, we've had quite a few celebrities come through, and it's fun to have them.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
So my question would be, you know, we're talking about Milwaukee's culinary future, right? We just had Top Chef in town. Excuse me. We are, you know, growing as a city as well. What do you see in the future of Milwaukee? My personal goal is to get us to be a Michelin star city. You know, what does the future look like for Milwaukee?
You know, that's a great question. I would love to see Michelin come here. I think that what, you know, Visit Milwaukee does for our city is amazing because it takes, you know, recognition, and you get most recognition through tourism. And if we keep building up our tourism, and also, you know, whether it be with conventions or, you know, more of a personal, you know, tourist, that will help us get that recognition, getting us out in some of those, you know, in some of the national publications that are out there, more national TV shows, just even the, you know, the awareness of Milwaukee and the culinary scene will bring more to us. And, you know, I think things like Michelin and other rating systems, you know, will find their way to here, especially, you know, with Chicago being so close, there's no reason why they shouldn't, you know, come up to Milwaukee with Michelin.
Is there a TV show in particular that you would love to see come to Milwaukee? I mean, Real Housewives of Salt Lake City is here. Not necessarily in your lane, but you know, it might be one of those shows.
My wife would probably love to see a Real Housewives come here, but you know, I personally, I don't know if we're ready for that here. You know, like the Harley Wives maybe or something.
Harley Wives.
Harley Wives. Yeah.
It's not a bad TV show.
Yeah, you know, but you know, I don't know which one I would want to see come here next. You know, there's opportunities for just about anything, and you can do anything in just about anywhere. So, you know, I think we just have to be open-minded to what we can get. You know, I think, you know, having another, you know, show like Top Chef come here would be amazing.
Yeah.
Whatever we can get, we should be you know, thankful for and open-minded about.
Okay, or is there a show in particular that you would love to be on, like American Ninja Warrior? Is that your next? Is that your next thing?
I can see you on there, man.
Yeah.
I can see you on there.
No, maybe the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. That might be more my speed, but I don't know. I'm not the biggest TV guy in the world, so I'm not sure about that. There's it would be cool to see one of our restaurants, like, Netflix has a great show, Chef's Table, to see,
true,
something like that. If they were doing more regional stuff, would be really neat. Gordon Ramsay has a show that's kind of cool, and he goes to different cities and countries and everything. So more of that stuff, less competition shows is what I would rather see.
Oh, really?
All right.
Is there a reason why? Or?
Because competition isn't what it is all about. It's not what a restaurant really is. For that kind of competition, we're cooking to get stuff done in a certain time, but we're doing this to make somebody happy,
right?
Not to be better than somebody else, that's cooking next to you. In the restaurant, you want everybody to be cooking just as great as the next person, so that all the guests from any station where their food comes from is going to be great.
Yeah.
So
how do we do more collaboration then?
I think it's through just chefs working together, like what I'm doing with having the chef pairing series, and just more events that are focused not just on one particular restaurant, but 2 or more, so that people can get different flavors and get chefs together and under the same roof, I guess.
Yeah. We need more cookbooks, man.
We need
more cookbooks.
Yep.
There you go. Was there a volume 2 for Visit Milwaukee's?
There might be.
I hope so. I really hope so. There's some really great recipes. I haven't made any in there yet, but I will be making some of them at some point.
Fantastic.
Nice. Yeah, definitely more collaboration. I think that it just helps everybody, and also it'd be cool too to also do collaboration, even like you said, on more of a national stage of how do you pull different pieces together to kind of highlight all different regions and people.
For sure. And, some of the chefs in the city are doing that. Like Dan Jacobs and Kyle, and, they're younger, they're traveling about, they're going to, to other cities to do events with other chefs and everything. And I think that's a great thing. I did that in the past as well. Getting to a point where I don't want to do that as much anymore. I like staying focused in Milwaukee and making sure that Milwaukee is, the main focus, which these guys are doing, and they're doing a great job of it. And, that's why I'm looking forward to working with some of them in these chef pairings that we have scheduled.
That's cool. What do you, what's your hot take on, as far as we're talking about the future trends, what's the next trend of food? That you can see just in your future. I mean, kind of evolves every few years.
This is like my favorite food question. I'm not a trendsetter, trendy person. I like to just keep teaching these young kids how to cook. That's really important.
Basics. You're the basics, fundamentals.
Fundamentals,
coach.
Traditional, and everything like that. It's making sure that you can do all these basics and know about how the ingredients are and what varies in them to make it so that you have to treat it in a certain way, and making sure that things are done properly.
Yeah.
I am about simplicity. So if there's more simplicity introduced into some of the trends, I think that would be better. But trends are trends.
Yeah.
They're not there to last or be forever.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't follow trends too often.
Yeah.
I like to stay with the tried and true.
Yeah, for sure. What's your take on all the TikTok food that's out there? Is we asked a few other chefs on the show.
Well, one, I don't have TikTok. So.
Neither do I.
It's just it's a big thing,
But I do have people coming up to me and going like, "Chef, what do you think of this?"
Yeah.
I'm like, that was mac and cheese, they made mac and cheese in their dishwasher.
Like what?
Or their hotel sink or something.
Yeah. It's there's some strange stuff out there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny,
Yeah.
There's a few chefs out there and cooks and home cooks doing stuff on like these cooking videos that are really good, and it's fun to see, and I enjoy watching those. But some of it you're just like, what in the world were they thinking?
Like, what am I watching right now?
Right. It's like, seriously?
Yeah.
So we live in Wisconsin, right?
Right.
You can get a lot of locally sourced ingredients. Obviously, a lot of people know about the cranberries and everything else. what would be your sleeper ingredient for anything that you can, add in from Wisconsin?
I mean, the dairy that we have here is just unbelievable. And, that's something that, I don't know if I wouldn't say it's a sleeper ingredient, but we have just some of the most unbelievable cheese on the planet. And, that's one of my, favorite things about it, about here, as well as, just the freshness of the produce that we get. It's, we have very short seasons with our produce, but when it's kicked into, the season, it's amazing stuff, and it's great to work with that. And there's so many great farms here that you can work with to get this amazing produce. So that's, for me, what I love about Wisconsin and our ingredients is that we have such a care for the agriculture here, and that it's accessible, and the people that are here appreciate it. There's a lot of states out there that I don't think they appreciate what they have sometimes as much as people from Wisconsin do.
As far as like 5 years from now, what's your future that you would like to see that Milwaukee can bring?
I hope that we have another generation of chefs and restaurateurs that are going to continue to up the level of what we are doing from a culinary standpoint. I think it's important that we continue teaching this younger generation, the hard work that it takes. You're not going to learn how to cook on TikTok. You are,
You're not?
Which unfortunately a lot of the kids think. It takes time and a lot of energy to become a good chef, but to become a great chef, it takes even more time and more energy. And knowledge is power, and that's something that is fading a little bit. Is the time that's being put in by some of these younger generations to learn more about it. They're jumping a little bit too fast. So my take is, be patient. Time will come. Learn as much as possible before you have too much responsibility keeping you from learning. What it is that you need to know.
Yeah.
And, I hope that we see a generation that's going to keep having our city grow and move forward and be, a culinary leader.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're on that path, man.
I hope so.
We're on that path. With people like you leading the way, we're going to get there.
I got a few years left in me yet, so.
You're not announcing the retirement?
No, not yet. I still got a lease.
There you go. Keeps you locked in.
Keeps you locked in.
Yeah, his best new restaurant this year, right? Was nominated for James Beard, so everything's new.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for being on this show, man. I mean, we appreciate your time and definitely the expertise. Where can people get connected and find you?
Well, you can find me at the restaurant.
Yeah.
I'm at Lupi Iris almost daily, and that's the best way to get in touch with me. And you can find me on Instagram here and there. I'm not the biggest social media person in the world, but I am there. But I love talking to people in person, so I'm at the restaurant. Come in. We have a chef counter that you could sit at, and when I'm there, I'll go and talk to you. Just ask for me.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for being on here.
Thanks for having us.
And for everybody watching and listening, please like and comment and share this episode. Definitely don't be selfish, give it to somebody. Let somebody hear what we were talking about today, and also like the future of just the culinary and the trends, and definitely Milwaukee and where we're all headed. So we are so excited for what's in the future. So we'll see you on the next episode. Peace.